According to the FBI hostage Barricade database system, which contains data from nearly 11,000 crisis incidents, only 1% of hostage situations end with the death of a victim. That number is the single most important fact in this video, because almost everything the movies have taught you about surviving a hostage situation points you in exactly the wrong direction. What keeps you alive is not courage, resistance, or trying to escape. The FBI's own data says it is something far less obvious and far more available than most people realize. It is August 23rd, 1973, in the heart of Stockholm, Sweden. A career criminal named Jan-Erik Olsson walks into the Kreditbanken on Norrmalmstorg Square and fires a machine gun into the ceiling. He takes 3 hostages: Birgitta Lundblad, Elisabeth Oldgren, and Kristin Ehnmark. Later, he discovers Sven Säfström hiding in the bank and takes him as well. Olsson demands money, a getaway car, and the release of his friend Clark Olofsson from prison. Swedish police seal the building. The standoff begins. For the next 6 days, the 4 hostages live in a bank vault with their 2 captors. They eat together. They sleep nearby. Kristin Ehnmark makes a phone call to Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. She does not ask him to help rescue her. She tells him she trusts her captors and that she is more afraid of the police than of the men holding her inside the vault. When the siege ends and the hostages walk out alive, their behavior shocks everyone watching. Birgitta Lundblad publicly defends the men who held her at gunpoint for 6 days. Elisabeth Oldgren later says that Olsson had been kind to her. Sven Säfström says that when Olsson treated them well, he thought of him as a kind of emergency protector. Kristin Ehnmark begins a correspondence with Olsson that continues for years after his imprisonment. Swedish criminologist Nils Bejerot, who had advised police during the siege, named what he observed. He called it Stockholm Syndrome, the psychological bonding that can develop between captive and captor under conditions of prolonged close proximity and absolute dependence on each other for survival. We will come back to what this means for your own chances of survival. First, you need to understand what the research of the FBI actually shows about what keeps hostages alive. The FBI Crisis Negotiation Unit has analyzed hostage incidents for over 5 decades. Gary Nosner, who served as the FBI Chief Hostage Negotiator and directed the Crisis Negotiation Unit from 1999 to 2003, documented the core findings in his 2010 book, Stalling for Time. The central conclusion from thousands of incidents is this: hostage situations are almost never resolved through force or escape. They are resolved through human communication. The longer a hostage situation continues without violence, the more likely it is to end peacefully. Time is not the enemy of a hostage. Time is their most powerful ally. Every hour that passes without an incident of violence increases the probability that the situation will resolve without harm to anyone. This is why professional negotiators do exactly what their job title suggests. They stall. They ask questions that require long answers. They request food for the hostages. They express understanding for the captors' grievances, not because they agree, but because conversation burns time, and time changes everything. What changes specifically is the relationship between captor and captive. Nosner documented the consistent pattern across hundreds of cases. Captors who begin to know their hostages as individual people become less likely to harm them. A person is harder to kill than a category. The job of a hostage, in the FBI's framework, is not to resist or to escape. It is to become a person to the captor, to use their name, to talk about mundane things, to ask about them, to establish any human connection that transforms the hostage from an object into an individual. This means that the survival instinct to remain silent, to show fear, to make yourself invisible, is precisely backwards. Silence preserves the hostage's status as an interchangeable object. Conversation begins to erode it. Now we return to what happened in Stockholm, in that bank vault, and why it matters. The bonding that Kristin Ehnmark and the other hostages developed with their captors was not weakness or confusion. According to an analysis by the FBI in 1999 that covered more than 1,200 hostage incidents, it was a functional survival mechanism. The same report found that 8% of kidnapping victims showed measurable signs of this bonding. More critically, crisis negotiators now actively encourage conditions that make it likely to develop, because hostages who establish a human connection with their captors have measurably better survival outcomes. The instinct feels wrong. The logic is sound. On February 4th, 1974, Patricia Hearst, 19 years old, was kidnapped from her apartment in Berkeley, California, by 5 members of the Symbionese Liberation Army, called SLA. Her fiancé, Stephen Weed, was beaten during the abduction. Members of the SLA put her into the trunk of a car and drove away. They kept her locked in a closet, blindfolded, for weeks. They made demands of her family that were designed to be impossible to meet. 10 weeks after her kidnapping, Patricia Hearst appeared on a bank surveillance camera in San Francisco. She was not a victim in the frame. She was holding an assault rifle and helping her captors rob the bank. She had adopted a new name, Tanya. She had joined the organization that had taken her by force. At her 1976 trial for armed robbery, her attorney F. Lee Bailey argued that the SLA had psychologically coerced her into participation. The jury found her guilty. The case became the most contested example of Stockholm Syndrome in American legal history, and debate over what actually happened to Patricia Hearst continues to this day. What is not debated is the mechanism that the FBI uses to explain cases like hers: total isolation, complete dependence on captors for basic needs, the alternation of cruelty and small kindnesses, and the gradual erosion of any external reference point for what is real. These are not unique to Hearst. They are the documented psychological architecture of prolonged captivity. The practical survival implication is specific and counterintuitive. The most dangerous moment in a hostage situation is not the beginning. It is a sudden rescue attempt. The FBI has documented that hostage deaths happen disproportionately during tactical interventions rather than during negotiations. A surprise assault turns a stable, if terrible, situation into an unpredictable one, where captors who might not have harmed anyone make decisions under extreme stress in seconds. That is why the FBI argues for patience over force. This means that the behavior most likely to save your life in a hostage situation is the opposite of what movies depict. Resistance, attempts to escape, and confrontation make you more dangerous to manage and increase the probability of harm. Compliance, calm, and consistent human communication reduce that risk. This also means that the skills most relevant to hostage survival, listening, remaining calm under extreme stress, and establishing a personal connection with a person behaving irrationally, are the same skills that reduce conflict in every other context. Gary Nosner said publicly, after 3 decades of negotiating some of the most dangerous situations in FBI history, that the principles he used to bring people out of bank vaults and barricaded houses alive were identical to the principles that reduce conflict in any ordinary relationship. The variable was the stakes, not the method. On that August morning in 1973, 4 people went into a bank vault, not knowing if they would leave alive. They left alive. The man who held them there described years later why he had not killed them. He said they had made it hard, because over 6 days they had become people to him. Not hostages. People. The 1% figure is not luck. It is the result of that same process, playing out across thousands of situations that almost no one ever hears about, in exactly the way the FBI data predicts.